before I begin, I hate doing shout-outs. I always think I'm bigger than that, but I promised Nix's aunt that I'll dedicate the speech to her. So, hi, Kat. This speech is for you. Yeah, great stuff. Super proud of myself. Guys, debate with your girlfriends. It's nice. Psych. When do I start? Sorry. It's on time. I just want to know if I can. Again. Guys, can I start? Okay. I promise, by the time I'm done with my speech, there will be no extensions left. There are a couple of things you need to note. Let's start with the framing. And I implore you, this is a Hogwarts motion. Do not fall for that crap where people come to use ideas and notions that are not unique to the Hogwarts universe to try to argue it. You need to be able to question whether or not this is Hogwarts knowledge and whether it fits into the Hogwarts world, specifically because we are speaking to an issue that goes on in the wizarding world. So if this does not fit into it, do not accept it, because it might work in the normal world, but it would not work in the wizarding world. The reason why this is important is because I am going to segue to the frame and what the framing for this debate looks like. And again, you can't say this is specialized knowledge, average intelligence voter. The average intelligent Hogwarts reader knows a number of these things I'm coming to tell you about, so it's not specialized knowledge. What do these curses look like, and what do we know about these curses? Beyond everything you get from the info slide, the first thing you need to know about these curses is they are not hard to cast. They are very simple curses any average person in the wizarding world can cast. The reason why this is important means that there is accessibility to this as a tool to self-defense and to fight against the forces of evil. But secondly, just like the info slide states, these curses are consistently used and are always going to be used by the forces of evil every single time. In all the wars that have happened in the wizarding world, the forces of evil use it, but the good guys claim they cannot and they will not. Guy, please don't do that. Please don't do that. Don't do it again. But what do we think is important to note also? There are other curses that are nearly as strong, note nearly as strong as these curses. What do these curses look like? These are curses that are defense against the dark art curses. That is what Severus Snape taught when he was in Hogwarts. But why do we think these curses are insufficient? 3 structural reasons. 1, they are not as accessible. This is because certain people do not get to have Severus Snape as their lecturer to teach them so well about how well to defend themselves against dark arts. But secondly, some of these cases are niche to families. The Malfoy family consistently has access to libraries with protected cases and defense art that nobody has. 3, most of these cases that are defense against the dark art cases require unique skills like parcel tongue that is not accessible to everybody. You'd realize in the very first classes that Harry Potter has with Snape, he has to speak parcel tongue to be able to cast certain cases. What this means is that if people like Harry are able to get defense of the dark arts, not everybody gets to get it. The ordinary average person has no defense against these cases because they do not have access. What this means is that the only thing super accessible to the average wizard is those unforgivable curses that are not accepted. And we think to the extent where that happens, we should not allow it. But the debate says we should allow it during times of conflict. I think it's important to frame why this is important. First, I think that the kind of conflicts that are most likely going to be referred to in these things, because this is essentially a matter of policy in the wizarding world. The kind of conflict this is going to refer to are of two folds. One, the Great Wizard Wars. We've had 3 Great Wizard Wars, and there's a chance that there would be another. These are typically ideological wizarding wars that always hinge on a claim that there are pure bloods and there are half-bloods. Consistently, the people on the evil side are the pure bloods, such as Voldemort, such as Grindelwald. Consistently, they oppress the little guy and consistently try to like ethnically cleanse them, essentially. The reason why this is important is something you get from Nix's speech, because I don't have time to get into it. But the second kind of individuals, like the second thing that we think this is going to like touch on is just like fights against great forces of evil, like the people mentioned in the nfo-Slide. Which conflicts does this not touch? This debate does not touch conflicts such as like squabbles between wizards. It is very idiotic for people to resort to using the Unforgivable Curse in such a squabble. It does not look like petty wizarding conflict that can be resorted by a basic display of weaponry. We don't think that's going to be agreed. But the reason why this is likely is because of the taboo culture typically attached to it. The only thing we are changing in the taboo culture is claiming that in the worst case scenario against like emissaries of Grindelwald, emissaries of Voldemort, you can use these things. Why then is this absolutely necessary? This is where the impacting comes. Before that, closing. Great, I think that's fine. I think that's fine. The problem is, in the very nature of wars, if 2 parties are fighting, there is always a small guy that suffers, and that is where this debate happens. Draco Malfoy's family can protect themselves against Voldemort. They have it. That's why I showed you that their defense against the dark arts, tools that these guys can use. But Laburu's family in the wizarding world does not have access to any unique magic that can defend them. But these kind of wars typically affect them irregardless, because consistently they are in the wizarding world and have to engage with dealings that go on there. The debate cannot be that, well, on both sides we have big guys, so we should be able to still try to win. But we think that even if you win, on our side we'll show you why it is better. 1, we think you provide self-defense to individuals who otherwise would not have been able to fight against these things without the access to these weaponry. We think that due to this, you create a fairer level of engagement for these individuals. It's basic, fair, or just war. Both parties have access to the same weaponry. But we think it's equally morally reprehensible for a party that can have access to important weaponry for them to defend themselves to be stripped of that access, especially when it is happening at a point at which they could die. Note that at certain points, this could be the last line of defense upon which you decide whether these guys would live or die. To the extent where they can access these things, you give them a higher chance of survival. But note, the biggest pushback you get from these guys is all the wizarding wars have been won by the good guys, and we think that you can still win with the good guys. That is true. The problem is the excesses. Laburu's family, Prince Tei's family in the wizarding world would not have anything to defend themselves with, and at certain points in time they are victims. We think today's debate cannot be about the big guys. Today's debate should be about a small guy who does not have anything to defend themselves with. We give you a faster end to the war and a protection of the most vulnerable entities who are half-bloods in such an oppressive system. Very proud to win this debate from OG. Simplest thing ever.
I be heard? Can I be heard? Like this. Is it clear? Okay. I'm starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Prosper gives a very good characterization of how these curses are accessible, right? We think that's the main reason why they still need to remain unforgivable, because the main reason why people are deterred to take these unforgivable curses at the end of the day is because of the perception that they have of these curses, right? Because the only reason why we end up not doing certain things in society is because we see them as something bad. Even though these curses are very accessible, good people in Hogwarts or in Wizarding World still didn't do it. They were deterred by it. That perception is the very reason why they did that, right? At a point in time where you make it legal, even if it's in war times, we think you erode that perception within people's minds, and it makes it very common for them, and it deters that idea of them being unforgivable, and so people have more incentive to use them normally, right? They say that there are other curses that are very close to it, right? And you can use defense against the dark arts to deter them and all of that, but not everybody, it's not accessible to everybody. We think that whole case is very unnecessary in the debate, right? Because I'm going to show you how, see, panel, the info slide says that you cannot rebut or counter these curses even if, unless you use these same curses. So defense against the dark arts is still not useful against these curses. What this means to a large extent is that you cannot counter these curses unless you use these same curses, right? So at the end of the day, his whole case of defense against dark arts something is very useless. Let's come to what exactly makes a good policy. 4 things, panel. 1, it should be equal in all circumstances. 2, it should actually solve a problem. And 3, it should help vulnerable people. 4, it should easily be applicable. Understand that these three curses that are unforgivable lead to slavery, torture, loss of life, which happens immediately. It's not just normal. It's like military strike in our world, right? What this means is that these are the 3 main things that are equivalent to our world war crimes. What this means is that the same reason why in our world war crimes are not allowed, because they basically ruin the distinction between right and wrong, and they erode that fine line between whether you are a moral person or not. Yeah. That same principle applies in that world, right? We agree that the Wizarding World is different, but they're still human beings. They still have that human dignity that should be applied to these people, right? We think that because it erodes the distinction between rights and wrong, and it doesn't protect people, and even the people involved in the military are hurt because of this. We do not think that this should be allowed, because not every tactic is legitimate. But it's even bad. This is the second case, because it gives the legitimacy for the bad people to actually use this, right? Because the good side is using it, and it gives the legitimacy for bad people to also use it. In status quo, without this policy, you're literally capable of not using. You're literally capable of punishing these people during war times if they use it and if they end up losing, right? But in their world, you cannot punish them, because they both have the bad side also has the legitimacy to end up saying, oh, we were in the war-torn time, so it's completely okay, right? But then the second reason why this policy is bad, because its potential harms are very high. 3 things under that, right? I think I give the characterization of how it then turns from necessity to normalization because of how people's perceptions exist, and how intensity of the harm of these curses is basically blurred at the end of the day based on contact theory, right? Like the more you come into contact with something, the more you get used to it, it becomes normalized. So the same way, like trigger warning, like rape and all of those things become normalized if you do not necessarily see them as something that is extremely bad, and you do not label them as bad, right? Panel understand that if you end up making something legal, right, under certain circumstances, people always find a way to justify it, right? You cannot regulate magic at the end of the day, right? What this means is that it actually, and that's basically a situational cost, because making distinction between actual war times becomes very difficult. It actually gives leverage to some people to be able to maneuver the situation according to whatever they would want, right? What this means is that at the end of the day, it becomes very problematic for people for it to become an actual for us to know where exactly to apply it and what situation to apply it, and it becomes very difficult. But then the second thing on it is that it actually escalates the whole situation. Because in every war, we want a solvency at the end of the day. At a point in time where there is no solution, right, where there is no solution to this war, because this policy is literally leading to no solution for whatever wars that exist, we think this policy is extremely bad, right? Because at a point in time where there are alternatives existing, we think it's a terrible thing. Because, see, alternatives exist. Like, if you win the war, you end up putting these people in jail who use these unforgivable curses. In their world, that does not happen, right? Because both of you literally use those unforgivable curses. The biggest case you're going to get from government side is that, we need to have something to defend ourselves, right? Okay. I've given you analysis as to how perception works. Because of these three wars, still people do not use these unforgivable curses. Why? Because the perception within the minds of good people is that they are unforgivable, they're extremely bad. That's the same reason why you don't use the name Voldemort and all of those things, right? So I'm just telling you how people's minds work in the first place. Their case is completely terrible. But then, once again, the rebuttal to the defense argument, right? Understand that it's a contradictory policy. Why? Because in normal times, Voldemort used one of those curses. Kinda listen. In normal times, Voldemort used those unforgivable curses. But the normal person is not allowed to defend themselves during normal times against this curse. What necessity is there in just war times to be able to use this curse? At a point in time where this policy is basically contradictory and it doesn't provide equal protection to every person in every situation, we think it's really problematic. But then lastly, we think there are punishments existing for these unforgivable curses. So these people cannot come and talk about victim closure and all of those things, because even in status quo, we do not have capital punishment for murder, because we respect human dignity at the end of the day. They will send these people to Azkaban for basically using these unforgivable curses or all of that, right? So victim closure still exists. At the end of the panel, you have to note, does this policy apply equally in all circumstances? Does this provide all the defense that these people need? If not, we do not like this policy. Proud to oppose. Can everyone hear me? Okay, cool. I also don't believe in dedications, but Prosper dedicated to my aunt, so do I. Shout out, Kat. Alrighty. Then I'm gonna start in 3, 2, 1. The biggest thing that we get from OO is this idea of normalization. Why do we think that fundamentally this cannot be true? We think that we see several instances in which things are normalized during wars without them being normalized outside of these conflict interests. We think military tanks can be used in wars, and we're not going to see one on the street in our everyday normal lives because there's not the same heightened tensions. But even if they were, we think we would punish them in normal lives. We think that we can still say that during conflict you're allowed to do something and you're not allowed to do it outside of that. We see several things that are allowed in wars and that are not allowed if you are a normal average citizen. Okay, but then secondly, they bring up this idea of equality for all, right? And that everybody should be in the same equal playing field. We think fundamentally these sides are not at the same equal playing field, because at the point where one has increased access to things like dark magic, has increased access to be able to use these things, we think at that point it's incredibly unlikely that they are equal. By being able to allow them to use these curses in the first place, we are allowing them to then actually be able to make it a more equal system. Okay, but then Thirdly, we have this idea from them about like war crimes. One, why do we think this is incredibly unjustified? We think that in the instance that we have war crimes, we have to actually be able to hold people to that. We don't think you're going to be able to hold anybody to these war crimes because we don't see the same systems within the wizarding world as we see within our normal world. We don't have bodies like the UN. We didn't have a conference like where we decided what war crimes were in the first place. We see different bodies, we see these wars are fought on international scales, and we see them being based solely around ideology. At this point, there is no body that can effectively decide, one, what these should be, and when we don't use them. Okay, but then, yeah, I'll take you. Alright, we think that's fine. We see that a large majority of these people are likely to use it either way. Why do we think they're going to use it either way? Because in all three of these big wizarding wars, they were fought largely based on blood supremacy, right? They were based on ideology. When things are based as ideology, we see large members of these, between these societies not believing that the other really counts as people. It's why we think it's incredibly likely that the Dark Lord and Voldemort's army are going to use these curses regardless because they don't view their opposition as people. We think that even in the instance that there are some purebloods within the opposing sides, the vast majority are either Muggleborns, half-bloods, or crosses between species. We think then they need to be able to defend themselves by using the same tactics that is being used against them. Otherwise, they are at a disproportionate disadvantage that's likely going to cause them to lose. Okay, but then to get onto my main matter, let's bring up this idea of ideology, right? And who is likely to use them. I've gotten into a little bit of this when I was going into my POI, but I'm going to expand on what this means. It means that we think it's incredibly justified for these people to be taking the same types of actions that have been taken against them to be able to stop this happening. We have literally seen in the nfo-Slide that the only ways to stop these curses are through that curse in and of themselves. That is the only way to defect them. At the last possible chance in which these people are actively fighting for their own freedom, for their own freedom from oppression, to stop the prejudice that's being actively perpetrated against them, we think they should be allowed to then use whatever means are necessary. Okay, but then secondly, I have this idea of state capture. What do we think this looks like? We think in the vast majority of these wizarding wars, we see things like the Ministry of Magic being taken over by what we would consider the oppressive forces, right? When the Ministry of Magic is then being taken over, we say even if you're not going to allow that these curses are used during conflict, that one side is going to be allowed to, because that's going to be ignored when they actually use it, because they are who's in power. We think the opposing side should then be justified in being able to go to the same defenses and not be held to a standard that even if we were to implement, nobody else would be following, right? Okay, but then my second principle, why do we think that simply because of the nature of who our heroes in these stories are, they need them? We think largely the vast majority of people in the society are either supporting Voldemort, his followers, etc., or indifferent to this conflict. It's why we see things like the Order of the Phoenix being incredibly small. It is not the vast majority of the population. When we see that that's incredibly small, we think that it's more necessary for them to take vital measures and to take vital action, because there isn't a lot that they can do. They don't have the numbers, they don't have the knowledge of opposing forces, and they need to be able to use whatever they can. Particularly within the wizarding world and the types of conflicts that we see, it is incredibly necessary that they're able to use these curses. Okay, but then two, I want to talk about efficiency and excessive violence, right? We think that the vast majority of these wars are fought for very long periods of time. We see that when they're fought for so long, it's largely because inefficiency, right? The entirety of the first couple Harry Potter books take so long solely because our heroes in the story are unwilling to go to the measures that they need to be able to stop who is actively oppressing them. in this point, we see that several more of their comrades and even just individuals on both sides end up dying because of how prolonged this conflict becomes. When it becomes incredibly prolonged, because you're never going to see a stop from people fighting for their own freedoms, and you're never going to see a stop from someone systematically oppressing based on ideology, you're just going to go all out forever unless you're able to effectively use something. We need to allow our heroes and the people fighting against that oppression to have an effective means to end this war as quickly as possible, so we don't see hundreds and thousands of people dying within these wars. But why do we think, even and above that, we would still place above our closing government? Because let's be honest, our OO and OCO teams are out already. We think we proved that we're principally justified and that this implementation would simply be impossible in a fair manner.
Can everyone hear me? Hi. Okay, so shout out. This speech is dedicated to Mohammed, to Victor. Thank you guys. This speech is also dedicated to the best debating union, I think in Africa, University of Ilorin Debate Club. Shout out to everyone. Exactly, like Semebode Cartel, any day, anytime. Semebode Cartel, thank you guys. So, I'll be starting. Okay, sure, I'll do that. Alright, so, I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. The biggest, starting in 3, 2, 1. The biggest case to come out from opening government is on the idea of self-defense. I'll show you why that is something that is irreparably stupid, right? Because one, they say that because these guys are advantaged, so let's allow them use this in times of war. Mind you, it's not only during the Great Wizard's War, like they say that these guys are disadvantaged. These guys are disadvantaged not only during that time of conflict, but every other fucking time of conflict. What they needed to prove was what exact situation is present within that particular war that requires this kind of inexplicable act. Unless they can be able to prove that, it makes no sense. Like Aliyah says, right, you have to make a policy equal. If you say I'm a disadvantaged person within minority, why is it like I'm a disadvantaged country? Why is it then only in World War I can use a particular tool, and why can't I use it in inter-regional conflict? That's something that is inherently stupid. The second thing they then say in their world is that, state capture. And it's another thing that talks about, because at the end of the day, what they say is, they want to give the good guys a fighting chance. They want to prevent great captures. Like they said in their speech panel, there have been 3 fucking great wizard wars. They didn't need to use these things, and they still fucking won. What exactly is going to be the difference in the next great wizard war that would require us to stoop so low and break everything we stand for as Hogwarts, and why we need to use that? They do not prove that. They can get the fuck off, right? But the third thing they say, and this is in response to our case on how it would not be normalized, right? They say that, there are ministries that hold people accountable, and hence people would not just use this ridiculously. That's inherently stupid panel. The reason why people have a lot of guns in America, right, is because at some point, people felt like, you know what, a time would come where the government would want to trample on our rights, and hence, let's have a right to defend on ourselves if that time comes. But what I would tell you is that in America today, even in instances where their rights are not being threatened because of the accessibility to go, and this is the fucking thing, they say that the courses are accessible. It makes no sense to then say that something so fucking accessible as these courses would not be normalized or would not be misused. The reason why Europe does not have the same fucking gun problem as America is because Europe is like, what is it called? Guns are not allowed in every form except, within the armed forces and stuff like that. Like, it literally makes no sense to want to say that it would not be normalized. The accessibility of these courses simply means that even outside the terms of war, regardless of the amount of regulation, because American constitution is very vast. Like, there are a lot of laws preventing school shootings, preventing things like armed conflict, but people still fucking do it, right? Because it's accessible, because they can get the gun off the fucking street. You can't come and tell us that our case on normalization doesn't work. And please stop talking, you're distracting me. If you had anything better to say, you should have said it in your speech, right? But the next thing they then say is that, right, like, these guys are, like, at the end of the day, essentially their case is self-defense. I already showed you why that form of self-defense is not principally justified, unless it's a form of self-defense that will be applicable in every single situation and not just fucking one. What exactly do you get from Aliyah and what would you get from me, right? The first thing she tells you about is how moral boundaries should not be eradicated even in terms of war, right? Because ultimately, there's a reason why these guys kept referring to certain people as the good guys, right? But what they're saying essentially is not even just shooting somebody. It's like things like drone strikes. It's like things like bombings, right? These things are things that to a very large extent are not something that, like even in normal society we ban, much less than the people who pride themselves as the good guys. Unless they're able to, one, prove situations where these things are inherently necessarily and only that particular thing, they cannot say that. But even if they prove in situations where they are necessary, we tell you that regardless of the situation going on, moral boundaries exist for a reason. There's a reason why in our own world, no matter how tough the conflict is, war crimes still exist and they remain war crimes regardless of how disadvantaged you are or regardless of whatever fucking thing is happening to you.
Pure.
The second thing, I'll take a pure, I promise. The second thing we then talk about is on how it normalizes, like from necessity to normalize. I think I already dealt with that. But the third thing then is escalation, right? Because here is the point. Wars are not won because then you decide to, what is it called, increase your war capacity, or you decide to add more machinery to your armory, particularly when it's something that is then equal. If anything, it leads to further conflicts because you now have new ways to torture each other, you now have new fucking ways to necessarily delve into immoral depth. At that point in time, what you have is escalation because there is no solvency at that point in time. Everybody now has new tools to necessarily tackle each other. You do not get any solvency from their own side. What's your PR? Panel, precedents. 3 fucking great wizards have been won with this so-called fucking less due defense. So what exactly are you saying, right? There is a way they won the first 3 wars. So if they could win it without that, then that definitely means that to a very large extent, they can also win it the next time without it, right? But also, these guys say that, but lastly, what do we tell you, right? We tell you that, one, it's about things like boundaries, right? Unless they can be able to prove why it is moral at the end of the day to neglect every single founding principles of Hogwarts simply because you want to win a war you've won severally and you've continued to win playing by the rules, they cannot show that it's justified. They lose the moral standing that these good guys claim to have. At the end of the day, no amount of self-defense is still then gotten, right? Because they cannot come and say that, oh, because you're disadvantaged, use these bad things. That doesn't necessarily in any form guarantees what is it called, winning. And this is the problem, right, panel? If their case is winning the war, right, then why is it then that the dark arts who uses these things don't win war? Because every single benefit you get from them is predicated on the idea that these fucking wars, these fucking curses would win you the war. But the dark arts who have used these things before have never fucking won the war. Unless they're going to be able to show why for some reason when the good guys then use it, that would be their magical tool to win. They cannot win this debate, right? Panel, the very best thing you get from these guys is on the idea of how, like, you give self-defense to the small guys, you prevent state capture, and how, like, to a very large extent, you allow for an equal playing field. We tell you how, one, that is not only false, but also principally unjustified. But secondly, we tell you how the principle of self-defense is wrong, right? Because if you really care about these small guys, right, why is it only in specific wars you want to give them something to protect themselves? Why can't they protect themselves across board? But panel, we tell you a couple of things. One, that moral boundaries, regardless of whether it's in a wartime or regardless of whether it is peacetime, moral boundaries should be protected. But secondly, the normalization of these things would crumble it would crumble the wizard schools, right? Because at the end of the day, normalization of accessible courses is something that is bad. But thirdly, you escalate wars when you had more guns to your machinery. But fourthly, right, we tell you that you do not need these things to win the war. You can't still win the war like you've done in the past with the very same machinery and the very same courses you've been using. But parts come from OO.
panel, as with many wars, the only thing that the heartless care about is winning. They don't care who dies, only that they win. And they get the benefits of the war. On our side of today's debate, we think that reducing the barriers of asymmetric warfare means that wars prosper. So panel, yes. Now because of that, it is very important or crucial to be able to show three things in today's debate. That is my extension. One, why this will not be normalized. That's the first extension. Two, why this is legitimate. And three, why this is beneficial and why this gets us to a closer level of solvency than we had at the beginning of today's debate. First thing, we think this is not going to be normalized like have you believe, because the unforgivable curses require a need for a strong intent before they can be cast. What this necessarily means is that the person casting it must truly, for all purposes, believe in the outcome that they want to happen before it actually does happen. On our side of today's debate, we don't think everybody in society walks around with the level of intent that is required for the harm that the unforgivable curses requires. It means that the more likely people that are going to have that level of intent are people that have been trained to have those things. So we are talking about people like soldiers, or in the wizarding world, people like Aurors, right? The police system, the security systems, right? It means that the level of normalization that these guys say will happen does not happen. Because I don't think that if Coca sees a soldier shooting someone, they magically think it's the right thing to do. Do you know why? Because there are other reasons. One, because the media will tell you it's not the right thing to do. Because two laws already exist that's above violence, and there are outcomes that you pay for things like that. You'll be tried and you'll be punished. That is why the info-Slide says there's literally Azkaban to punish you. Four, there are other agents of socialization and values, which means that even if individuals are allowed to do these things, they may not necessarily do them. Why? For example, there's someone in Harry Potter called Luna Lovegood, and she's just those kumbaya people with she's practically a gypsy. You cannot force Luna Lovegood to do violence. She would likely never use the unforgivable curse, even if you threaten to kill her. It means the analysis about normalization that was winning from OO does not exist, and that is why they're out of the debate. Yes. Not necessarily. The opposite of not loving war is not the fact that you love peace. It just could mean that you are not inclined naturally to actually do evil. Naturally. I don't think we have to bite that bullet. I think that we could have. Alright. Now, why is this legitimate to do this? Principal justification you do not get from any side in today's debate. Prosper told you self-defense. I want to take it a round back, show you why the idea of self-defense exists. We think that rights do not exist because they are a nice thing. We think rights are functional. The reason why states or institutions or societies give themselves rights is because they hope that those rights will be used for a particular utility. We think that when you decide to use those rights for a disutility or a harm, then we should be able to do something to curtail that right. If we think that you have a freedom of choice, body autonomy, and you use that body autonomy to cause someone's killing, then we are empowered to actually remove that life that you are using to actually cause that harm. And that is why on a principle justification, we think this is right. This is the premise for why OG's mechanization on self-defense will work. When you understand why rights exist in the first place, We think that when bad actors in society use these rights to cause a bad outcome, right? Depending on the level of outcome they cause, they should get some proportional harm for that outcome because rights are functional. Second reason, proportionality. Two levels. One, we think the situation calls for the level of violence that exists for good actors. Why? Because we're not talking about just any other situation, and that responds to OO. We are talking of times of conflict. You can give OG that if you want to, because I've done an analysis that actually survives without that mechanization. But the second thing is that we're also talking about the action that is being used, which is why we need to be able to do these things. We don't think rights exist in absolution. We think rights can be curtailed when there's a moral harm. Do you know why this is important? It deals with OO's case on the agency, and why agency is important. When you mess with your agency, we take it as good actors. I have a lot to do. Maybe open, I'll take you. Why is this beneficial? The first reason why it's beneficial is that it reduces the support for evil actors. In status quo, a lot of people in black communities may not naturally be inclined to gang violence or drugs or a host of other ills that black communities suffer from. But when they look at sometimes when they look at the incompetence or the incapacity of the state versus the fear for their lives in the areas in which they exist in, they're more likely to pander to those forces of violence for fear of their lives. In our world, when you mechanize, decentralizing this level of violence when you are just to do it, right? You reduce the incentives that gangs have to be able to bully and intimidate people from joining them. That is a world that is more preferable. We think that world is more beneficial. But the second reason is that most of the people that are already able to use these things are irrational actors. It means that they will never truly change or never change their minds on doing the evil that they continue to do. It means the level of escalation that OO says will happen never happens. This is the last resort because we cannot afford to lose that war. But the third reason is on asymmetric warfare. We think that in a lot of instances, the canker that several societies face is the fact that they are not able to actually go beyond their moral constraints to fight the evil where it exists, right? What does this look like? It looks like touching the leaders of gangs to be able to interrogate and find out where to get those people. It looks like being able to do whatever you can as a police institution or as a state institution to make sure that you can quell like the harms that occur. We think that in status quo, the reason why a lot of violence or a lot of crimes continue to exist, whether in reality or in the wizarding world, is because people of power that cause these violence are protected by things like laws and by things like our moral constraints. We think that when it is time when we are faced with conflict that actually threatens the survival of states and societies as a whole, we are legitimate to be able to do these things if we get the solvency that is required. Now, the third reason why we should do this, right, is beneficial. It's because of the extent of the harm that happens when you do not defend yourself, because of the number of people that are involved when you do not defend yourself, and because of how vulnerable they are when you do not defend yourself. Hope and I will deal with that. At the end of today's debate, we have shown you why this thing will not be normalized. Proud CG.
On? So first off, shout out. Thank God. Massive shout out to Elisha. Massive shout out to my Veritas kids. They're sadly not able to make it to the Hogwarts, but like you see them at KDU. Phenomenal speakers. I'm not arrogant. I have a PADC trophy, but we don't need to brag about it. So yeah. So yeah. One last shout out. Yeah, this is particularly to Hogwarts Ocom and the CA team. So like for the past 2 years, I've been insulting your judge polls. So this year, you guys did well. So let me also congratulate you guys. You guys tried. Yeah, you guys are good this year. Obviously, I'm winning. So I'll start in. So pardon, there's a general concession in today's debate. And the concession that has been verbally agreed on by every team is the most important thing in today's debate is deciding to create a world where the good guys can actually win. But let me articulate why that's important. Because if the good guys don't win, what happens is the Muggle world suffers, which is the majority of the population. But not just the muggle world, the wizarding world. Because as they say, half-bloods, malt-bloods, which are the majority of wizards, also suffer. And more importantly, these guys are very openly despotic, are willing to even kill their own lackeys to show signs of strength. They are absolutely chaotic leaders. This is a bad thing, objectively, by every metric. Our case in today's debate is simple. That the existence of unforgivable curses and the restrictions of unforgivable curses are the exact reason why the good guys have won the past 3 wizarding wars. Let's put this in context. First and foremost, how do wizarding wars actually work and what do they look like? 1, wizards are not communal in the way that they have large existing nations that live together or buildings. Most wizards are reclusive. They live on hills, they live in small communities that are locked off or largely isolated. Outside of interactions with the Ministry of Magic, they really don't have massive interactions with other members of the community. Why is this context crucial? It means that they don't really understand what conflicts look like or who the right or the wrong side in most conflicts are. This is particularly pertinent for 2 reasons. 1, that their most common sources of information are oftentimes things like Rita Skeeter or the Ministry of Magic. And at face value, the ideas that are pushed forward by the bad guys are actually beneficial to them. So wizard supremacy, that wizards should dominate over humans. They should directly interfere in their actions and make designs for them. That the more of a wizard you are and the more of a wizard you should be proud of these things. What that means is if you see their perspectives, the things they talk about, at face value, they assume or they look to be beneficial to wizards. What that means is it's instinctive for wizards to opt into these guys' ideologies and support them, which is why oftentimes at the start of almost every wizarding war, whether it was Grindelwald or Voldemort, they were all historically popular and had massive amounts of support. When then are the good guys able to get support and win? When their desperation shows. When in the process of trying to get their policies, their decisions, or the beliefs that they want to opt into first, they now use things like unforgivable curses. Because what these things then signal to the rest of the community is that these guys are the problem in your society. Because they are unable to do simple things like respect bare basic wizard decency. What that means is that you're able to then justify, question their ideologies or question the things they say and actually interrogate them. Notice that this is not something that would intuitively come to magicians, and it's not something that they intuitively do in most instances. It's also why, as I pointed out before, a lot of these ideologies were historically popular. And this means, especially because there's a tendency for this kind of warfare, like all great wizarding wars, to extend beyond the walls of like the UK and extend across and worldwide. What that means is that most places are uninformed. So now you're trying to wonder, who is the bad guy, who is the good guy, which side do I take, and which side, or do I not intervene? Now, as they rightly say, a lot of wizards are non-interventionary. They will just rather just mind their own business. The problem is, as they have also characterized, those same bad guys are from very wealthy families, very influential, very good at accessing multiple magic spells with a lot more options. What that means is that if nobody intervenes, the good guys will, under normal circumstances, lose. But because the bad guys consistently use unforgivable spells, every other person that's outside, everybody else that's unconcerned with the conflict is able to say, okay, you guys have stepped too far. You guys are bad. You guys are in the wrong, and we need to step in. The reason why this system works, the reason why people need to push back, and then people then take action at this point, is because their use of unforgivable spells signals something that is problematic within their society. In a world where this particular system is justified or is legalized and everybody is using unforgivable spells, it's now impossible to tell who the good or the right side is by acts of desperation, by their unwillingness to respect wizarding rights, unwillingness to cross those lines. What that means is that most parties will just simply sit back and watch. What that means, by their own characterization, by their own framing, means that in most of these instances, we would see a next great wizarding war where the supposed bad guys end up winning. Dr. Pure. Okay, responses. Now, first and foremost, how do you know? First and foremost, they are as big as Hogsmeade apparently is. It holds less than 1,000 wizards. Same thing for Diagon Alley, which means that wizards live in villages, literal fucking villages, and that's what they call communities. Nobody in Hogsmeade knows who hit who first in Diagon Alley. What that means is that when they get there and are trying to resolve the situation, or the Ministry of Magic shows up, the easiest way to figure out who the wrong actors are or what sides to take is simply deciding who took the more extreme measures and did things like cast unforgivable spell curses. That's the very simple response. And this then extends, as I said before, when this particular wars, like Great Wizarding was, cross national borders. Because the louder it is, the more disconnected these communities are. But furthermore, into sustainability. Because after a war, there's still life. Yeah, you must live, you must eat food, you must make love, you must do all those things. Yeah, the only way a world is sustainable is if the economy still functions. Notice for context, the economy of the wizarding world is magic. The only way you can channel and control magic is through people. Yeah, in most instances, either because they are able to manipulate or control either animals, plants, or their wands, right? So that's the basis on which the economics functions. Notice how all three unforgivable curses target these things. If you cast a Avada Kedavra, you automatically kill the person. You destroy human resources. Cruciatus Imperium ruins people's minds on a very crazy level. You destroy human resources. What that means is that you destroy literally the same economy that you are coming back to building. It's a literal act of tough burning on like a very unrealistic, fundamentally problematic level. But notice the slippery slope that leads here. All three of these spells are the peak of their game. When it comes to death curses, it's Avada Kedavra. When it comes to Cruciatus, when it comes to torture, it's Cruciatus. When it comes to mind control, it's Imperium. The existence of the stopgap, which is that you cannot use these courses no matter what, has prevented the furthering of research and engagement in these courses, which means that even worse, even more problematic courses have been prevented by the simple fact that people are just unable to use these spells. You cannot research them. You cannot find out a better death course that allows you to kill someone from a mile away because you cannot even research them. You can't find a better control course or torture course because you are blocked off researching them. We're able to do three things. Show that we signal to everyone who the good guys are and win wars, maintain the economy, and prevent the furtherance of evil. Very proud to win.
Okay, so quick thing. I generally don't care about awards and who is better than who generally, but something happened in this tournament and I don't like it. Everyone debates different. So if you want our speech to grow, we need to accept that we are not all the same. Probably I'm better, yes. Let's not Johnny Sins will make heaven before Ayafa wins this final. There are two things that make their case very worthless. The first thing they tell you is, oh, well, we are symbolizing to them that we don't want to hurt you. Who cares if we don't want to hurt you? They will hurt you anyway. Two, they say that there would be research into this. They also say that the bad guys were doing it before, regardless of the ban. So is it that the bad guys are dumb that they cannot research into something that they are using all this while? That is only now that, oh, they will start researching all of a sudden. Panel, note this, I'm going to take every claim, no matter how nonsensical I think it is, so that there is nothing new that Elisha can give you. The third thing he says is that, oh, we are signaling moral high ground. The only high ground they have is the high ground that they say that the wizards are on. Because there is no moral high ground better than the high ground of signaling that we care about the most vulnerable people in our society. And if you get near them, you will be hurt. Note, the average person does not think that, hey, war should come. When it comes, we win. This is not Hogwarts finals, or is there conflict? So we don't say, oh, let's fight. After all, we will win. So come and beat us. That's not how war works. Because people know that they may not live to celebrate that victory. Two, don't believe me. Ayafa said muggles are the most harmed, and they are a lot. It means that as an average intelligent voter, you should care about those people the most. I don't think that's how they think about those things. Two, you need to realize something very simple, right? Their case on signaling, and it's just based off of normalization, which credit is OO's case, that people will do it anyway. That's why he's saying they just add that research. So all he's saying, they'll kill people anyhow. This one said we'll research and we'll kill them. There is no new matter that they are giving you. They don't have an extension. Next thing, Prosper. Prosper says access and self-defense, right? But the principle he gives does not justify this case. It justifies defending yourself generally, not about proportionality. You get that from Lawyer Calvin. Elisha, sit down. Next thing, they have no smart responses for normalization. There are two things DPM tells you. First, that people are not like that. Okay. Second, that, they have seen what conflict is like. There are two responses I will give you. The first response is a response OO themselves give you to their case. Aliyah tells you that, don't let this case happen. After all, there is solvency if they hurt you. So if there is solvency, why are you bothered that more people will use it? More weapons, more crime, more solvency, by your logic. Two, the second thing they say is, decentralization is good. Again, it's a general argument that they give. You can give them cutlass. It's also decentralization of violence. They don't justify this case specifically. Next thing, OO gives them a very key response on deflection, which is that the case can be deflected back to you. What it means is two things. A, that people have less reason to use it in the first place for this reason. Second, the response is gotten from CO's case. Do you know why? Ayafa tells you that a lot of people do not really have any idea of who is good and who is bad. So if you don't know who is good, you don't know who is bad. But you get up saying, let me curse you, I don't know if you're good. Let me curse you, I don't know if you're good. I curse you, I curse you. That's not how conflict works. Because at best, Prosper is right that the aggressor is the one you will harm. The only thing is that that's all Prosper says, right? He doesn't show you why. Our biggest impact in this debate is that we will beat you or threaten you with it before you try. Now, listen to this panel. It's very important. Imagine you have an under-resourced army that is fighting a war. In the war, Army A has 100 soldiers. You also have 100. At the end, Army A has 60 left. You have 35 left. But Army A is under-resourced. Do you imagine what they will do? They will do to you if they had the same weaponry you have. The war will be over before it has begun. And that is the only way you build long-term sustainability. You don't build sustainability with signaling that I am better than you. You build sustainability with signaling that if you fool, I will whoop your ass. That's how you build sustainability and difference. Yes. Oh, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. See, for you to say that I said that, it means I'm not debating the motion. I'm not dumb. I'm a better debater than you. I know what the motion says. Second thing we told you is not that these people are using specialized force alone. We told you that the average person, as Ayafa says, does not have strong intent. But Ayafa said it means Ayafa is contradicting you. I don't know why you're complaining about Ayafa, about me, instead of Ayafa, because he said it, that they don't have strong will to harm people. That is what Calvin is saying. That because they don't have any strong will to harm people, they will not use it anyhow. Yes. Elisha, you are smarter than this. Listen, if the police is using cane to fight a war, I'm assuming the best case for him. The police is using cane to fight a war. You cannot hold cane. Now the police have AK-47. Our case is that if only the police still fight as it is in status quo, they will still win the war faster because they have more weaponry and then they have better. So even if you don't even if you don't believe our case, We show you that even if only special forces use it, we will still win this debate. Panel, note, as I've told you already, nobody likes, no average person likes a war just because they will win. These people and these people will not win this final, but they will go home alive. But in a war, your country can win and you will still die. That is the exclusive thing. Prosper says, allow me to defend myself. The fact that you can curse someone does not mean you can't be cursed too. Our case is better because we prevent you from even getting into that situation where you will have to use that curse in the first place. We are proactive. Vote CG.
All right. So everyone is doing shout outs. I'm going to start by saying that I've said this before. I love the concept of the Hogwarts tournament. So thank you for making it happen all the time. Also, I think people don't realize how funny it gets when you're with someone in the space. Because now, if you're a good speaker, they never judge finals because of you. So I'm sorry, Ella. I'll speak less moving forward. Anyway. So I think the debate starts from OG. Prosper sets up an amazing debate. He says a couple of things that we need to ensure that this is in the Hogwarts law and all of that. CG is out of this debate because of that. I'm going to give you one simple example. They talk about the nature of how these cases are done, and then later on he likens it to AK-47. Makes absolutely no sense, and I'm going to explain to you why they are losing the debate. But let's start with the first thing that Prosper says about the kind of conflicts that are likely going to need these things. They are ideological conflicts. To what point do we disagree on ideology? We disagree on ideology to the point that one ideology is moral and one ideology is immoral. What that inherently means is that Ayafa is explaining to you how on our side we are able to get allies in order to help us in a conflict which they claim is an ideological issue. Because regardless of what the beginning is, whether it's pure blood versus people that are not pure bloods, etc., it boils down to morality. Moral v immoral. That is why the signaling case is extremely important, and you are going to get it soon. Second thing, there are lots of problems in the Gov bench. Each team is knifing itself, and both teams are knifing each other. Let me start with OG. Prosper says that it is not going to be normalized because the Ministry of Magic is going to stop people. Nix then says that the Ministry of Magic has absolutely no capacity to do anything, and hence that is why the bad people are going to use it and nothing is going to happen to them. Therefore, we actively need to engage them. And this is between OG. I just want to point out something. Regardless of whether you believe me or not, all their analysis on this side shows that the Ministry of Magic is not capable of protecting people in instances where there is conflict, and that is why those people must protect themselves. And that is why they run self-defense. So whether they contradict themselves or not, that is the implication. Why then is the case of self-defense really bad in this debate? Self-defense exists in two instances. In a world where we are able to ascertain the extent to which the self-defense is rational and is justified, and secondly, when there's a body to actively decide whether this is true or false. Two things on this, and let me explain. When somebody uses self-defense, even at the point of robbery, you still go to court and you are charged with manslaughter, and you must defend yourself and explain why that self-defense makes sense before they don't arrest you and put you in jail. Because until then, you are a murderer. What this then means is if on their side, there's absolutely nothing, there's no one that can ascertain the extent to which this self-defense can be justifiable or not, then people can use this in any way. People can decide to do anything because nobody can justify. But secondly, and here's why our first case, second case, that nobody has engaged in this debate makes so much sense. Recognize that IAFA says we are going to break the very structures of magic and destroy the magic economy and the magic world by casting these spells. He explains this because he tells you that magic is channeled through human beings. Insofar as magic is channeled through human beings, and you are actively changing the nature of these human beings just because you are actively controlling them, doing things to them, etc. You make it impossible for people to perform magic, but you equally then defeat the purpose of things like the Ministry of Magic, because these things don't exist anymore, meaning that nobody can ascertain the level of self-defense. All I'm saying is that you can't have self-defense on their side. On our end, we are defending the very nature of the magic world, and we are making it impossible for people to destroy the magic world that makes things rational. And I need you guys to pay attention. Don't watch them. Look at me and listen to what I'm saying. Because at the end of the day, they need to defend how they ensure self-defense on their side if nobody at all can decide what is right or wrong, because there's no Ministry of Magic that can do that. Then let's move on to how we are winning this debate. Listen, on both sides, we agree that they've won 3 wars. OO points it out, and OO is really brilliant. They do a great job. They just don't link how the current strategy that the good people have is linked to them winning the 3 wars in the past. And everybody ridicules our case on signaling, and it's really funny to me, because think about it in the real world, right? In most instances, the aggressor already intends to aggress or like oppress the person. What that inherently means is that they are preparing, and the person who is going to be oppressed is not preparing. 2 things at this point. Their case on intent makes no sense, because if you need to be walking around with an intent, and they knife these guys, because these guys say it is something that is accessible, anybody can cast the spell. These people say you can't just cast it, you need intent. If you are walking around not expecting to be attacked, you don't walk around with an intent to kill another person. That makes their side up, like out of this debate, because on their side nobody has that intent. And recognize, you can't use something that only requires your full intent to take action as a precautionary measure. Because if I tell you I will slap you if you touch me, but until I really want to slap you, I can't slap you, it makes no sense. They can't win the debate with that. Siege is out. Sit down. Back to my case then. Here's why we are winning the debate. Insofar as the case is an ideological fight, like they say, the signaling effect matters, because in most instances, these people that win the wars are popular. I'm going to give you an example. Grindelwald was someone who was about to win the Ministry of Magic elections. The evil person that started one of the first wars was extremely popular, because people could not ascertain the level of morality that this individual has. How did they then ascertain it? They ascertained this by using the fact that he actively killed some creatures and used them in a way that is seen as immoral, and actively used these curses that he shouldn't have used. What did that then do? It actively created public perception that switched the tables in favor of Dumbledore, who was losing the war at that time. What does this then inherently point? In all instances where the good people have won the wars have been prolonged. And the wars will always be prolonged on both sides. Because on both sides, everybody is identifying, is defending their honor, and is defending their identity. And it is an ideological issue. Ideological wars never go away. We actively fight it. The only way you are able to tip the skills towards your side is if you are able to signal to non-active participants that you are the only side that actively upholds the principles of the magic world and ensures that your victory is not at the expense of the magic world that they also depend on. So these people are going to support us, because at the end of the day, our win is something that actively ensures that the magic world continues to exist, and something that does not destroy the world that they also live in. You can't just discredit our case and say that signaling doesn't matter. A couple of things on why this is the case. These people are actively interventionists, the people in the magic world. That's why they don't want to participate in human activities, etc. Secondly, they actively like uphold things like ensuring that magic is being practiced in a way that is not going to destroy nature. It is the same concept with human beings. We all want to win wars, but we equally don't want to throw in nuclear bombs that will destroy the very earth that we live in. And that is why it is easy for the US to say that they have moral superiority over people like Iran, who would actively use the nuclear bomb in any way, in any shape or form, to win the war. We don't want the Irans of those worlds winning the war. We want the US of those worlds who are willing to uphold morality and then get the support that they deserve. It's been a good day to oppose.
Action.
kindly come inside. We're about to start the award ceremony. Okay. Guys, please settle down, please. Those outside, kindly come inside. Okay, top 5 judges, and this award will be presented by Abdul Fattah. But before that, Ocom would like to announce to all those who are owing the tournament that please pay. Thank you.
Back asset, you know they play my chumbares. Me see my jolly, but no bata me congo no. Baby congo so, you dey see me no fit kill for my head. I need to know where you did. Oh yeah, send me all look kiki. Shabali girl no delay. Oh, Vanessa not today. I need to know where you did. Send me all look kiki. Shabali girl no delay. Excellent, 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 excellent. You go put me for emergency, shout it. say she be Jensen. She working Fendi, pull up in a Benz. Bum bum they offend me when she bend it. You go put me for it. I need to know you did. Oh yes, me all look at you. Shabali you know the way. Oh, my days are not taking. I need to know you did. Send me all look at you. Shabali you know the way. My days are not taking. Come to my guitar. Oh, excellent, excellent, oh, excellent, excellent. You go put me for emergency. Shorty, excellent, excellent, oh, excellent, excellent. You go emergency. Only you bad of it, my chest. Your back asset. You know they play my jumba rest. Me see my jolly. But no bata big bongo no. Baby, bongo so. You dey see ya. Me no fit kill am for my head. I need to know what you did. Oh yes, me all look kiki. Shabali you know the day. Oh, my days are not taking. I need to know what you did. Send me all look kiki. Shabali you.
Hello? Okay. So we're about to announce the top 5 adjudicators. We have coming in 5th place. Unkunimadum.
I did not pick it. I pick it, pick it, pick it. Shaking my meal, I get it. I get it, I get it, I get it. Baby, I just want to pick it. I pick it, pick it, pick it.
Coming the 4th best adjudicator, Vanessa. The 3rd best adjudicator, Elijah. Second best adjudicator, he's judging the finals, Desmond Ado. Could someone kindly receive the medal on his behalf? And the best judge for Hogwarts Invitational 2025, we have Peace John Callier. Thank you. So we'll move on to the Speaker Awards shortly. But
But before that, the convener would like to share a short message with you guys. Nathaniel Kweku.
Hi guys. Okay. So first, I just want to say thank you to everyone for making it to Hogwarts. Charlie, anyway, yeah. But yeah, well, let's. So thank you to everyone for making it to Hogwarts. Hogwarts is nothing without its participants, obviously. Yesterday I learned this is the 9th iteration of Hogwarts, so I guess from tomorrow we start planning the 10th anniversary of Hogwarts. We have big plans for you, so yeah, let's keep that in the back burner. Probably OG's version. But yeah, the idea is for 9 good years, speakers from across the continent, best speakers from across the continent, make it a point to miss work, to miss class, to miss church, whatever it is, and come here for 3 to 2 days and debate under grueling conditions, debate weird motions, debate about J.K. Rowling's world, and put their self-esteem on the line. And and I think that's something that is worth celebrating, because it's evident of a circuit that is thriving, a circuit that is willing to grow, a circuit that is willing to self-evaluate, and a circuit that's willing to interact. I think it's something that we should continue to keep up with in future Hogwarts. I hope that we no longer have swings in the tournament, because I think that's evidence of slight dips. Second thing I'd like to say, beyond of course, we didn't need. Second thing I'd like to say beyond thanking everybody for being here is apology from OC, because I think it's in order for a couple of things. The first was Hogwarts is not known for tardiness, but this tournament in particular experienced large amounts of tardiness. And one experienced 2 hours of delays, and they two similar things. The blame is shared, obviously. Part of it had to do with logistical issues and act of God. A part of it also had to do with an attitudinal problem. And I want to use this opportunity to send like a clarion call to the circuit. Oh, okay, sorry. I just want to use this opportunity to send a clarion call to the circuit. In as much as our willingness to come here is indicative of positive things, when we come here, I think it's important that we exhibit fullness of commitment and stuff like that, right? So we probably should not be as tardy as we were in this tournament. I'm having to pay extra to the streaming guys because we overdid our time, and that's bad. Finally, Hogwarts is a very lean tournament. We charge the lowest regos I know. We provide reasonable accommodation. Shout out to Alias unsolicited hickeys. Yeah, but yeah, Hogwarts is a very lean tournament. We do our best to provide the best quality, but charge as little as possible, because we recognize that it's a huge sacrifice people make to be here. You're part of the, I think, as our people say, hand go, hand come. You're part of the bargain is that, in as much as we do not ask much, the little we ask, you please honor your part of the bill. So, henceforth, I'm going to chase you. I was about to say I'm not going to chase anybody, but I'm going to chase you. But please make our work easier. If you know you haven't paid your rego, in good faith, I'm watching you. In good faith, please pay us. We, this year in particular, we had to take on a lot of extra costs because of certain things that those who know about. Those who've been here for previous Hogwarts know this is not the usual venue. And change of venues, change of logistical processes come with extra costs, extra difficulties. So please pay us our money. Markway, Calvin, pay us our money. The Lord, pay us our money. The Lord, pay us our money. The Lord, pay us our money. Anyway, yeah. But yeah, so that's that, right? We beg, pay us our money. Finally, for those who may need transport to KDO, I know a lot of like first timers to KDO are here, so you don't know how to navigate Kumasi, those things. I think there's an effort to where's Jesse? Is Jesse here? He's working on it. Okay, so there's an effort to put together transport so that it makes it easier for everybody. So look out for a list or a poll, whatever. It will be put on the page. Sign up for it quickly so that we can put plans together so we can move to KDO. I will not be at KDO, so no fleku, I'll pay you at KDO. Me, I want my money. Anyway, thank you very much.
Alright, I'm going to try to keep it short. Oh, it's sad people like Prosper ended up laughing at last. I'm not happy that my hopes are winning. But yeah, it's been a nice time in Ghana. So the reason why I'm here is I want to implore you all to come for Nigerian tournaments, the same way Nigerian turn up for Ghanaian tournaments. So in a month plus, we are going to be having NDC, which is our Nigerian Debate Open. It's going to be happening from the 18th to the 22nd of July. So it's a tournament where Nigerians you can't partner someone from your union. So you basically have to partner someone from another country or from another union. So don't worry, we are nice people. The judges are good. There is no agenda.